What's up, everybody? How are you doing today? Ancient Egypt, man, long history, long history. So, last time we talked, Queen Hatshepsut, I believe that's how you're saying it, Hatshepsut, the queen, the new queen of Egypt. She has a stepson who's not old enough to rule, so she rules instead of him until he can become old enough. And she she's a woman about her business. She does what any good leader would do, in Egypt. So she has some building projects she wants to get done. She's sending out her emissaries and communicating with other communities, trade, keeping the business flowing. And so far, things are going good for the queen. Sorry about that. And with that, we'll pick up where we left off.
It's a remarkable scene. It shows the two obelisks on a barge, end to end. Apparently, they put the two obelisks. Now, the obelisks are huge. They're 90 feet high. 90 feet high. They weigh something like a quarter, 250,000 tons. Right? They're huge. And they're end to end on a single barge. They were quarried at Aswan in the south of Egypt and towed by 27 boats. And you can see the boats in the Nile with ropes attached to this barge. There are 3 pilot ships that are guiding them. And she was very proud of this. And she says that they were quarried and erected in 7 months. Right, so the whole thing, start to finish, was 7 months. And to this day, if you want to see the tallest obelisk still standing in Egypt, go to Karnak Temple and you'll see Hatshepsut's obelisk. So she was very proud of these things, very proud, and rightly so. All indications are that during her reign, there was tremendous prosperity. Tremendous. And she wasn't masquerading as a man. One shouldn't think that. No, she was clearly saying, I'm a woman, but I'm king of Egypt. At the base of her obelisk, she even calls herself the female falcon. Remember, the pharaoh was always associated with Horus, the falcon god. And she is the female falcon. So, she's not masquerading. Now, she has 2 tombs. Why would a person have 2 tombs? Well, one was as Queen of Egypt. Remember, she was Queen of Egypt for a while. But that wouldn't do. She built a tomb, Queen of Egypt, sarcophagus in it, but abandoned it. She was going to be buried in the Valley of the Kings. And that's where her tomb is, in the Valley of the Kings.
Wow.
It's one of the longest tombs in the valley and one of the most dangerous. It was a very difficult excavation by Howard Carter. Had been filled in with rubble by rain. When rains come, the rare rain in the Valley of the Kings causes boulders and rocks to come cascading into tombs that are open, and this had been packed for hundreds and hundreds of years. When he finally reached the burial chamber, it was a terribly damaged tomb, but there were 2 sarcophagi there. 2. And they're interesting sarcophagi. They're in the shape of a cartouche. They're royal. One was, of course, for Hatshepsut, but the other was her father's. She had decided that her father would be buried with her. And I think it's significant. She didn't pick her husband. We don't have a sarcophagus for Tutmosis II. And during her entire reign when she's ruling as king, never mentioned she was married to the previous pharaoh. He's never mentioned. That's why I say I think it might have been a long, long 20 years married to him. But she has this sarcophagus for herself and another one for Thutmose I, her father. She has another monument that's quite interesting. It's called the Chapelle Rouge. The reason we call it in French is because the French excavated it. It's the red chapel. It's made out of Aswan granite. It's rather nice. It's red. And what's interesting is this. In this little chapel that was erected at Karnak Temple, she shows herself side by side with Thutmose III. The two kings, the two royal people are standing next to each other. Now this is important, very important. Many people wonder, did Hatshepsut usurp the throne from her nephew stepson? Did she somehow push him in the background, maybe imprison him, who knows what, because she wanted to keep the power in her own hands? Because he's growing up. Time is passing. He's ready to become king, and we don't hear from him. We don't. Many people feel this was a kind of power play. Hatshepsut won. And when she finally died, Thutmose appears, becomes a great king, as I said, but that's for next time. Becomes a great king, but out of anger, as soon as he's pharaoh in his own right, erases her name from Dir el-Bahari and replaces it with the names of his ancestors, right? Thutmose I, Thutmose II is his father, right? We got grandpa, we got dad, and we've got me, Thutmose III. So he's really showing I'm the legitimate king from 1 to 2 to Thutmose III. So many people feel, that this was done in anger. And the reason I say this Chapelle Rouge, Red Chapel, is so important, it shows that it's not the case. He didn't do it out of anger. Here's why I say that. The Red Chapel was later dismantled, well into Thutmose's reign. I mean, way into his reign. It had always been standing in Karnak, and her name, Hatshepsut's name, had been allowed to remain on that chapel. It was only erased like 20 years after Thutmose III became king. He didn't do it right away. And the question then becomes, well, why did he wait? If it wasn't out of anger, why did he do it? The answer may be, it just may be, and we'll talk about this at the end, that for official reasons, they just wanted to obliterate all traces of Hatshepsut. Maybe they didn't want it known in the official records that a woman had been king of Egypt. But we'll see. But there's another figure we have to talk about in this story of Hatshepsut.
Wow. Wow. So, the child grows up, becomes the rightful king of Egypt, and some odd years after he's into his rule, he has his stepmom's name erased from the official records. And they're saying that he didn't do it out of anger, that maybe it was politically motivated. Nobody in the royal court felt like Egypt should be remembered as having a woman in charge. I'm not completely sold on that. And the reason why I say that is because growing up in most households, the woman is in charge of the household. The woman runs the house. She makes sure that there's food on the table, clothes on the kids' back. She's the one that's rearing the kids. Even in modern times, if there's a problem in school, 9 times out of 10, the mother is the one having the parent-teacher conference. Some men will go with the mother, but a lot of times the mother goes by herself. Women are very capable of running household. So why come they can't run a country? Even in our current day, we've got what, 3 or 4 different women in politics trying to be president, and that's not going to happen. I don't. Maybe it's because that particular woman. Now that I could see, if you don't feel that a certain woman has the qualifications to run the country, then don't vote for her. But don't sit up and not vote for her just because she was a woman. Because every citizen in the United States has grew up knowing their mother, or at least knowing a mother figure. They had to they had to budget how much money was going to food, how much was going on clothes, where to go shop for clothes, how we was going to get there. They had to deal with the transportation, finance, agriculture. You know, it, they didn't have a staff to deal with. They had to do all this on their own. So to say that a woman can't be president is a bold-faced lie. I'm not saying I'm a feminist, but right is right and wrong is wrong. You know, even in my job that I work, one of my supervisors is a female, and she does very good. In previous years, I've had problems, issues with her, but those were just personal observations. But overall, nobody's calling. There's not calling the home office complaining about her. You know, none of the customers are outraged. Why do you have a woman in charge? This is outrageous. She doesn't know what she's doing. None of that. None of that at all. So, I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Should we part with our old ways and consider electing a woman based on performance and not just because she's a woman? I mean, come on. Now we got female judges, we got the LBQ people, doing their thing. Transgenders are getting rights. So, what's the problem? You you can't have your cake and eat it too. So, we as a society need to make up our minds what we want and what we don't want. But at the same time, you decide that you don't want something. Don't backtrack later on after the deal is done and say, "Oh, I want that too." You can't have both. It's either or. You let transgender girls transition. You want to accept gay men and women in the mainstream society, but at the same time, you don't want a woman president. Somebody help me make sense of that. I'm not understanding. You don't want a heterosexual woman to be president, but if a man wants to transition to become a female, that's totally fine. If a young man, a young boy wants to transition to a female, that's fine. But there's no way on earth that the United States will ever have a female president. Bullcrap. That, that type of thinking is pure bullcrap, especially when it comes to the American Negro. Because as history has shown us, as the professor is telling us, according to his research, there have been multiple times when a woman was in charge, and it wasn't all bad. So I don't know what to tell you. A lot of you people out there in this world today are just dead wrong. You know, if a woman can do the job, she should be allowed to do the job, but only because she's proven to be able and capable of doing that job, not because, oh, I'm a woman. Okay, big freaking deal. You're a woman, and a lot of times you get females, not all females, but a lot of times you get females that will play that role like, oh well, they're discriminating against me because I'm a woman. But a lot of them same females hollering equal rights, equal pay. Then when it comes to a certain situation, why you're gonna make me do that? I'm a woman. No, you was a woman when you was complaining about you not getting paid like a man. You was a woman when you was complaining about it's unfair that you are being kept from doing the same job that a man can do. Now you got the right to do it, and you you shy away from it. You can't pick and choose like that. You either all in or all out. You either step up or shut up. It's that simple. And clearly, women in the past have been able to pull this off and not complained about it. There have been situations where there were women warriors. So who are you in this modern age to complain about, oh, I can't do that, I'm a woman? Get out of here. Let's get back to our story.
A man. His name is Senmut. Senmut. Now, Hatshepsut can't remarry. Women, queens, when their husbands died, did not remarry. It's kind of like Queens of England. I don't think they remarry either when they're widowed. I don't think so. They just didn't do it. So she can't remarry. She is going to remain the widowed queen, so to speak, but then she becomes king. She does have her daughter, remember, Neferu Ray. She has a daughter. But the daughter dies when she's a teenager. It must have been one of the great sadnesses in Hatshepsut's life. Neferu Ray dies. But there is a man in her life. And we're really not sure exactly how much in her life he is, but many people have suggested that this Senmut is her lover. And I'll explain why. It's interesting, by the way, whenever you see little drawings of Senmut, you can always tell him he has kind of like a double chin. They draw him in with a double chin, little lines under his chin. And I think it suggests prosperity. He's a little bit heavy, and that was good in Egypt. You could afford to eat, you were a little bit prosperous. Now, the reason people suggest Senmut was her lover is that he had so many titles. He was so successful in her reign. First of all, he's a commoner. No royal blood in his veins. He is also a bachelor for life. We don't know of a wife, children, no family. Unusual in Egypt. He remained a bachelor for life. But his titles are important. He was overseer of the royal palace. That's one title. He was also the royal tutor. He was the daughter's tutor. And there are statues of Senmut with the girl on his lap, showing that he's a tutor. He also is overseer of the granaries of Amun. Now, remember, the temples had an awful lot of land, and as overseer of the granaries of Amun, he controlled a lot of money. A lot. He is also overseer of the works. He is in charge of things like building Deir el-Bahari, make sure where the money is dispersed. He himself has two tombs. Senmut has two tombs. The first tomb is on the west bank of Thebes, high up, rather grand, beautiful view. And when you walk through it, there on the walls are all his titles. Overseer of the palace, overseer of the granaries, royal tutor. And in this tomb, he never used it, by the way. The tomb was not used by Senmut. I'll tell you why in a minute. In this tomb were found the remains of his sarcophagus, a pink Aswan granite sarcophagus. All that pink granite used by the Egyptians comes from those quarries at Aswan, just on the southern border of Egypt. And his sarcophagus, when it was found by excavators, had been smashed to pieces, practically no piece larger than your fist. Now, it wasn't just like it cracked and broke. It looks like it was vengeance. But they took the pieces, and as best they could, they reconstructed it. And it exists today, by the way, in the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Senmut's sarcophagus is there in New York in the Metropolitan Museum of Art. They reconstructed it, and what they discovered was it was in the shape of a cartouche. It was a royal sarcophagus. Not only that, it had originally been intended for Hatshepsut. She had given him her royal sarcophagus to be buried in. That's one of the reasons why people suggest that perhaps, just perhaps, Senmut and Hatshepsut were lovers. There's no doubt they were very close. Let me say something about his second tomb. It's in a unique place. It is within the temple precincts of Deir el-Bahari, Hatshepsut's mortuary temple. His tomb, he was permitted to place his tomb within the boundaries of the royal mortuary temple, a tremendous honor. It's an unusual tomb, quite special, quite special. It has several levels. You go all the way down and down and down. It's really quite something. And then it's unfinished. He must have died before it was completed. Unfinished. But it has something that at that time was absolutely unique in Egypt. Nobody had ever seen it before. On the ceiling of his burial, well, not even his burial chamber, before the burial chamber, on the ceiling is an astronomical ceiling. It shows the hours of the nights and the constellations of the night sky. Beautifully drawn, and the decans, that's how they divided the night into hours. And it shows which stars were where. Rather beautiful. Nobody had ever done this. Ever. It's going to be copied in the future because it was so beautiful, but you'll see it in the Valley of the Kings. Royalty will pick up this idea of an astronomical ceiling. Right? But Senmut died before that was completed. Now, one last suggestion about their possibly being lovers. It seems as if, even during Hatshepsut's reign, people were talking about them. Senmut dies before Hatshepsut. He just disappears from history, dies. But while he was alive, people were talking. And we have graffiti of the workmen who worked on the west bank of Thebes that suggests that they thought there was something going on between the two of them. And let me describe it to you. It's pornographic graffiti. In the heat of the day, during lunch, when the workmen would take a break and have their lunch, they would often take their lunch breaks in unfinished tombs, and there were plenty of them in the area, just to stay out of the sun. They would go inside, and some of these guys were artists. They were artists. And they would draw on the walls, just kind of the way kids do nowadays. And there is one graffito. Let me describe it to you. You make of it what you want. It shows a woman. She's naked. Except for the royal cobra on her forehead. Right? She's wearing the crown of Egypt. And making love to her is a man wearing an overseer's cap, like the overseer of the works. Right? So you have this female pharaoh being made love to by an overseer. Now, clearly it probably was Senmut and Hatshepsut. So people were talking. Now, why was she permitted? What was the special deal about putting his tomb within the precincts of Deir el-Bahari? Why? Well, Hatshepsut's tomb in the Valley of the Kings, the longest in the valley, angles towards Deir el-Bahari. And Hatshepsut's and Senmut's tomb angles towards her. It's almost as if they were both tunneling underground. One from Deir el-Bahari, the other two from the Valley of the Kings, to meet in the middle so they could spend eternity together. And many people think this was intentional, that they were really planning on sort of spending eternity forever, together. But they didn't. Senmut dies first, then Hatshepsut dies. And after she dies, as we know, Thutmose III succeeds her, and after a period of about 20 years, starts to erase her name wherever he could find it. And as I say, I don't think it's done in anger. At some point, there was an official decision made. We can't have it recorded that a woman was king of Egypt. So today, if you look on the king's lists, these long lists that pharaohs carved on temples' walls of their ancestors, of the previous kings of Egypt, if you look on these kings' lists, you will never find the name of Hatshepsut. Never. Egypt just couldn't have it recorded that they had a woman as king. But she was quite a king. I'll see you next time.